Tuesday's election brought us surprises and tense moments locally and nationally. So now that we've had a few days to process things, let's talk about what we experienced and saw. Dana Haynes, director of editorial content at the Portland Tribune, is here. The Portland Tribune, now owned by Carpenter Media. And viewers of this program and our election specials are familiar with Dana. So Dana, welcome back to Eye on Northwest Politics.
Glad to be here.
You saw the conversation that we had with Portland Mayor-elect Keith Wilson. When did he hit your radar, and what did you think when he actually won the race?
When he ran first for the city council, he impressed us a lot. This was several years ago. And at the time we thought, although he is a newcomer, he will be back. He just impressed us so much right away. And when he hit the ground running on this race, he was on message every time I saw him. The man had one message. It was homelessness, 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 and he never veered off it. So early on, I thought he was an odds-off chance of being in the top 3 or 4. Wasn't sure he was going to make it all the way until that debate that you hosted with the Chamber of Commerce, and he really sounded good that night.
Yeah. You've been a political insider. You're a staffer for former Portland Mayor Charlie Haynes. With the new form of government that's going to be happening as of January, how do you see this city hall being different from the one that you were in or the one that Ted Wheeler is in right now?
Vastly different, entirely different creature. First off, this fellow is not going to be the commissioner for the police department or any other bureau. He's not going to be running a bureau the way the mayors have for 100 years. Secondly, he's going to have to deal with the city manager. We've never had one. We have one in every other city in Oregon. We just don't have one here. Secondly, there's going to be a city council president. That might be the most influential and important person in City Hall, which has always been the mayor. How are those two going to get along? I guess we're going to find out. Finally, the thing that won't change at all is the mayor gets blamed for everything in the city. I remember when Charlie Haynes was there and we got a telephone call from a person who wasn't happy that crows were pooping on the sidewalk, and what was the mayor going to do about it? So he's going to get the blame for every conceivable thing, and you just roll with that.
What do you see as the pluses and the minuses of the new system with the charter reform in the city of Portland?
Before I worked at City Hall for the mayor, I thought there was some dysfunction at City Hall, and I completely was wrong. It was massive dysfunction. It was a really weird, siloed system in which communications was very, very difficult. That's gone now because you don't have people running this bureau and somebody running this bureau, and there's no communication between them. That'll be gone. But here's the thing. We've never had this form of governance. We've never had the city manager and the assistant city managers. The dais isn't built yet at City Hall to take 12 chairs. They're not even done doing that yet. They're building this airplane while it's in the air. So how it's all going to function, I know it won't function like the old one did, but how it's going to function, stay tuned.
What role do you think ranked choice voting played in Wilson's victory? And was ranked choice voting a success from what we've seen so far?
I talked to Tim Scott moments ago. It was earlier this morning at Multnomah County elections, and he told me that 96.6% of voters in Portland handed in the regular traditional ballot and the ranked choice voting ballot. And I had told him earlier on, I'll bet a lot of people won't vote on that thing because they don't know what it is. 96% turned both of them in. So for my standards, that's a success. I think it's an interesting form. It's been used elsewhere for a long, long time, new to us, but been used elsewhere for quite a long time. And I do think it played a role in Keith Wilson because I suspect the 3 insiders, the 3 city commissioners who ran, split their votes and let him surge ahead as the outsider.
And a lot of people were looking for change. So I imagine that a lot of people put Keith Wilson as their maybe number 2 or number 3 choice.
I talked to journalists in Maine and Alaska who said that's a common occurrence, that an outlier will get so many 2s and 3s, and the 1s will split each other up, and an outlier, let's say a moderate, for instance, if there's in a liberal or very conservative race, that outlier can sometimes surge ahead in ranked choice voting. And I think as the analyses come in the weeks to come, I think that's what we're going to find out.
We had Measure 117, which would have taken ranked choice voting statewide or given municipalities the option to go to ranked choice voting statewide. It went down overwhelmingly. Voters said, we didn't want to do this. Why do you think that happened?
I think it was poorly written. I think people looked at it and thought it was a mandate to go to ranked choice voting. And very few places in Oregon had used it yet. It wasn't a mandate, it was an option to make the change. So I think it was the wording of it and the fact that the legislature opted themselves out of it. People thought, oh, they don't want it, but they put it on the ballot. That seems odd to me. So I think the timing was poor. If they'd have let Portland and Multnomah County in 2 years run a few of these and then tried it statewide, I think it might have succeeded.
Ballot Measure 118, which was the Oregon rebate. Basically free money. You tax corporations that make a lot of money. You give every Oregonian $1,600. Free money sounded like a good idea to a lot of people, but that went down overwhelmingly as well. So what happened there?
It was crushed. The message from everybody, from the business community, from the conservative community, from the liberal community, from the arts community, was that this was a scam run by outsiders who are not Oregonians who wanted to test it here. It would have blown a huge hole in the state budget. And I think that message coming from every stripe of Oregon politics was enough to convince voters that this was a con job.
Let's talk about the congressional races in Oregon and Southwest Washington. Oregon District 5, Washington District 3 took even more importance on as Republicans took control of the Senate and the White House. So if Democrats are not able to take the House, what does that mean in terms of the balance of power in Washington, D.C. and Trump's return to power?
Well, think of it this way. If Donald Trump has the White House, and if the Republicans have the Senate and they have the House, and if the Supreme Court has essentially been appointed by Trump, all of the power in Washington, D.C. is going to be isolated in one party. It's going to be interesting is the kindest way to put that. I do think those two races out here were very interesting. CD3 in Washington, CD5 in every eye in all of Washington, D.C. was on the West Coast, because as the West Coast goes, so goes control of the House. And we still don't know what it is. Remember, Democrats need to flip 4 seats in total to take that away from the Republicans. Right now, it's 5 to 6 and pick them.
Yeah, and as of this moment, the races haven't been officially called yet, but it seems like the Democrats in both of those races will be victorious from what we know now.
And these are women, they're young women, and I think they're very, very interesting candidates. Both, one of them has been in the House already, but I think they're very interesting women.
Donald Trump going back to the White House come January, and his victory was pretty decisive. What did we in the media miss when it came to Trump's return to power? My
theory is that polling was a science in the 20th century, and it ain't in the 21st. I think polling no longer works, partly because of cell phones, partly because people just don't want to tell you how they're going to vote. They don't think it's any of your bloody business. So I think polling, there's going to come a time, and I was hoping it would have been a couple of years ago, when we just simply stop believing the polls, because the polling science has failed in this century.
Are polls going to be persona non grata in the future? Are people just going to say, hey, I'm not either going to participate in polls or I'm not going to believe them when I see them?
I've gotten to that point. I've gotten to the point when you tell me there's a poll that's saying such and such and this and that, I think I take it with a grain of salt, because so many of them are wrong by enough margin that I've just gotten to a point where I just don't think we run very, very few stories about polling because I just don't trust them.
We got about a minute left, Dana, and nationally, the Democrats lean to abortion and protecting democracy as their core issues. Republicans focused on the border, the economy, as well as some transgender issues. Do the Democrats need to do some soul searching in terms of their messaging?
I don't know. Sometimes it's the messenger. Donald Trump has some flaws as a human being, but he's an incredibly good messenger. He gets his message across to the people he needs to get his message across. If another Republican, conservative Republican, had tried to do that same message, he might have gotten slaughtered. So I think the messenger might be more important than the message. I think that's the takeaway for me right now. But I also think there's going to be doctoral theses and books written about this for the next 30 years.
At least.
That's right.
Dana Haynes of the Portland Tribune, thank you so much for being on Eye on Northwest Politics. Appreciate the insight.
Always a pleasure to be here.